It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Howdy, howdy, ho, hey, hey, he. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Nice to have you with us, as always. Richard Sirgiovanni is here today. Richard is the creator of The Grimps, which is an original animated rock and roll series for kids presenting original music. He will be here to tell us his story, as well as the story of The Grimps. And we will be playing the theme song of the Grimps cartoon, which is performed by a group of young guys, early teenagers, and they're quite good musicians. We also have Paul D. Marks here today. Paul is an author who has written a book called Broken Windows, which is a sequel to a book called White Heat, which was an award-winning mystery thriller. The books are sort of private eye. The books are sort of private eye kind of books. You can find more information at pauldmarks.com, and we will talk about his book. Before we get to them, we've got our complete radio promo playlist. We've been featuring all this month Kathy Varna and her track Partir, and also Yajur Music and his track Cold Brew Coffee. So lots to get to. Here is Kathy Varna, followed by Yajur Music, and then we'll go straight into the interview with Richard Sirgiovanni, commercial break, and then the interview with Paul D. Marks.
Toujours ouvrir son passé au grand jour, ouvrir ses années sur le temps, déchire souvenirs et discours. Trop vouloir offrir sans retour ses moindres désirs, fils de nous enseigne à partir, à trop embellir les faux jours. Trop vouloir courir à genoux initie les désirs, partir, trouver le lieu qui m'a vu naître un jour, partir, sauter le feu de nos ancêtres amours. Je veux partir, ouvrir les yeux, se reconnaître tout, partir sans les aveux de tout son être toujours, de son être d'amour. Trop partager son bonheur, on se fait voler dans son cœur, son âme, ses pleurs. À trop adorer les trompeurs, on se fait brûler sur nos peurs, drame des rêveurs, à trop épouser les rôdeurs, on se fait noyer aux vapeurs de flammes sans fleurs, à trop se livrer aux fureurs du corps affamé, on se meurt sous la lame du tueur, partir, trouver le lieu qui m'a vu naître un jour, partir, sauter le feu de nos ancêtres amours. Je veux partir, ouvrir les yeux, se reconnaître pour partir, sans désaveu de tout son être toujours. Je veux partir, trouver le lieu qui m'a vu naître un jour. Partir, sans désaveu de tout son être toujours, de son être d'amour, de son être d'amour, de son être d'amour.
Just one last time, I just wanna be the one to bring it back. I can see you're worried if I'll be alright. I'll show them how to fix the slack. Oh, I just needed some sympathy, but I will try to survive. Don't show me how to make myself feel free. Maybe try to be my guide. Your cold brew coffee's on the way, baby, but long distance is not the way. My heart starts rushing when I see your face. I hope you feel the same. Maybe tell me what's wrong with a little bit of fun. Don't you try to fix me up with rules of jealous love. 'Cause I need you to tell me that you need me. I hope you'll see that if you're gonna stay, your cold brew coffee's on the way. Fighting always a crime. Why do we always play along? What if our arguments bring a smile and help me sing and write the song? What if we never spoke of time? What if you left it in the air? And the fact that I made you cry won't change the fact that I still care. Your cold brew coffee's on the way, baby, but long distance is not the way. My heart starts rushing when I see your face. I hope you feel the same. Maybe tell me what's wrong with a little bit of fun. Don't you try to fix me up with rules of jealous love. 'Cause I need you to tell me that you need me. I hope you'll see that if you're gonna stay, your cold brew coffee's on the way. Time doesn't matter to us, our fight. Don't battle to love, just try to make sure that you're by my side. Your cold brew coffee's on the way, baby, but long distance is not the way. My heart starts rushing when I see your face. I hope you feel the same. Baby, tell me what's wrong with a little bit of fun. Don't you try to fix me up with rules of jealous love. 'Cause I need you to tell me that you need me. I hope you'll see that if you're gonna stay, your cold brew coffee's on the way.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Richard Sirgiovanni. Hey, Richard, how are you?
Hey, Douglas, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's see, you are a musician, you're an artist, you've got a cartoon series now called The Grimps. How long has The Grimps been around?
I started to develop it a few years ago when I basically I've been an artist and musician pretty much my whole life, working on all different types of projects over the years, and those two parallel roads came together a few years ago, and I decided that I wanted to create something new that, combined my passions, which is, music, mainly rock and roll, and storytelling and cartooning. So I started to develop it about 3 years or 4 years ago.
I know you're a Beatles fan because I've seen you put, likes and things on some of the stuff that I've posted, Beatles pictures. And what I found interesting about the Grimps as I was looking through it, there's a lot of funny Beatles references in there that people may or may not get. I think Beatles fans definitely would get it, but some pretty funny ones. I mean, some of the characters, you had Billy and Shears and Magic Alex and Spectre and
very observant. Very observant.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Beatles fan. I mean, my interest in music started because of the Beatles. Probably around the same time, I, like a kid, would be interested in drawing. So when I started to develop the Grimps, I wanted this whole project overall to be like a subtle tribute to rock and roll. Kind of like if people remember the Mutant Ninja Turtles, it was subtle. The kids didn't know, Donatello and Raphael, and that they were Renaissance painters, so they took their names. So many references, characters' names. Most of my main character names are all from referring to people from the music business, and a bunch of other characters that'll come in the future are also out of the music business. But a lot of Beatle references, like Billy and Shears, Winston, one of the Grimps, which is John Lennon's middle name, and and it goes from there. So I based a lot of those things just from my own silly little pleasure, because this will primarily be for a lot of kids. But as I've been finding, because someone like yourself, or through my social media efforts, a lot of people that are interested in classic rock or grew up with it, and many of them and many of us are even the grandparents of today, love the nostalgia part of it, and they're picking up on that. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with continuing to develop that idea behind the scenes.
Well, you've got the four main characters in the Grimps, which are Winston, Mac, which I assume is McCartney.
Mac Carter, yes.
And then you've got Emerson and Mooney, and I'm just trying to think if that's Keith Emerson and Keith Moon. Was that what that was from? Yeah?
Hit it on the head, absolutely. And, Mooney definitely for Keith Moon. And, Keith Emerson. And funny little backstory to that name is when in my very early parts of developing it, I actually was contacted and struck up a friendship with Keith Emerson because of that, when he noticed the Grimps. And, unfortunately, he had an untimely death later on, but I had the pleasure of meeting him, and we talked, and he was thrilled about the project, not just because of his name being attached, and I was thrilled because here was a guy that I would go, at 15 years old in Madison Square Garden and see ELP in concert in front of 20,000 people. And here he was, I'm sitting with him. He invited me backstage him and Greg Lake played a show maybe a year before he died, and we got to talk, and we talked on the phone many times. So, yeah, you hit that on the head, of those two. So, yeah, that's the Four Grimps.
Wow, that's a great story. So now the Grimps, is it out? I mean, can people watch it? Where is it? Where's it available?
It's in its development stage right now.
Okay.
Doing a lot of things behind the scenes, talking and working with animation companies, and to launch a new band in itself is a hard venture, and in today's world, trying to sell a TV show concept isn't as easy. But we've been getting a lot of very good response from behind the scenes, and we continue to work on I have a writing partner, so we're writing episodes. We're working on new songs in the studio for the Grimps. So we're doing a lot of this back-end stuff while we're trying to secure a deal. In one way, there's so many opportunities with new vehicles for content between streaming and networks and all of that. And on the other hand, it just becomes a little bit more difficult to break it through. So we're going to get there, and we're going to get there soon. But right now we're kind of behind the scenes in development, but we've been getting a very good response so far.
Well, I just saw on Bloomberg Market Channel about 2 days ago that Disney is now starting to venture into the streaming market. They're going to have some kind of Netflix-ish company. This would be perfect for Disney because it's a kids' concept show, I think.
Yeah, I read that also, and I'm not surprised. Disney has basically taken over the world, and I would love to. I think the Grimps would make a great home with Disney, and with the streaming services that they're going to be doing, they'll be a powerhouse, and they are actually one of the places that are on our list. Easier said than done to get to that point, but I have total faith and belief that they would be a great place for us with their background. Plus, Walt Disney is one of my idols, so if I could ever land in his home, boy, that would be great for me.
Let's talk a little bit about the Grimps and the whole concept of it. Now, it's an animated series.
Right.
It's aimed at 6 to 12-year-olds.
Primary audience, if you had to pick it for the children's animation, yes.
Okay. What exactly do they do? I mean, what are you going to see for that? Is it a half an hour show?
Our initial intention that it would be a half hour show, but watching the way content is broadcast today, like on Nickelodeon and even on Disney and a few others, they're doing half-hour shows, and they're doing 10-minute shows within a half-hour segment where they maybe get 2 episodes in one. So it remains to be seen where it could go, but it's probably our writing process right now. We're writing everything based on a half-hour show, which is basically about 22 minutes of animation, and that's where I think it would go.
So give us an idea of the storylines.
Oh, well, I wanted to, as I said earlier, I wanted to do something with music, rock and roll, and storytelling, but I didn't want to just do something about a rock band because it's been done before and it could get quite boring pretty fast. So the storyline is, or call it the backstory, is that the Four Grimps, Winston, Mac, Emerson, and Moody, and they have their friend, Magic Alex. And if you're a Beatles fan, you know who Magic Alex is also.
Yeah, I sure do.
Who is their resident wizard, lived actually 500 years ago, say in the time of Robin Hood and all that. And they were minstrels that, roamed the land and played music for the townspeople, and everyone loved them and blah, blah, blah. But there was an evil wizard in the kingdom, and he was very jealous of their local celebrity. The wizard's name is Spectre, so all you music fans or history of rock and roll, you might guess who Spectre was. And he cursed them banish them forever, and they get morphed into these small little creature goblins, and they disappear off into the woods for the next 500 years, watching the world change because they can't come out in society anymore. And they saw the world change, and they saw music change from Beethoven to the Beatles right up to today. And so the show will take place in present time. So 500 years later, Magic Alex, who is a good but fumbling sort of wizard, finds a spell which he's been working on for 500 years to turn them back to humans so they can go on with life and come back out into society. But the spell is only done, is a bosh or a mix-up, so to say. And what ends up happening is that they transform back to humans, but to young boys, and only from sunset to sunrise, which is perfect working hours for a rock and roll band. So the viewer is going to be able to watch the trials and tribulations of what they do during the day, how they get around, what happens, and then there'll be episodes about them in the evening and what it's like to be in a rock band and playing music. And every episode is going to promote and present one new original song. And that's our intention. And it's going to be, the writing of the song is going to be based on the theme of the storyline of the episode. Trying to make it positive messages and humorous for kids without preaching to them, but, all good things. And it's not going to be novelty music, like a lot of kids shows have. We're looking to, really produce some really good original rock and roll, pop rock, whatever you want to call it these days, music. And I'm working with a couple of really, really good people from behind the scenes on that right now.
Now, you've got actual kids that are the band, right? I saw the video for that.
Right. Well, that becomes part 3 of the plan. So our intention is we're going to have this animated show called The Grimps. As episode, presents a new song every episode. The storylines and all that will stand on its own. We have a new song that comes out. But what we did, we put together a live band. So now we have a live band who actually can go on the road and present it. They're young teens. They're phenomenal musicians for their age. And they're going to be able to go out and they're going to represent themselves as the Grimps for live performances. So our human versions of the characters look like these kids that the public would see live on stage.
Okay. Yeah, because I did watch the video, and it was pretty good. I mean, I think those guys were, like you said, for their age, I think they were quite good musicians.
Working with Tony Bon Jovi from behind the scenes on that and the music and the production. The last name people will recognize, or Tony is cousins and actually launched and got John, his cousin, signed all those years ago and produced the first few albums. Plus he's worked on so many other things over the years with different artists.
Let's have a listen to the theme song, and then we'll come back to you. Okay, so anything you want to tell us about this? About the song? Oh,
well, the theme song, yeah, I'm glad you reminded me. The theme song, I mean, I don't know the age group of your listeners, but there's a song that was a big hit song in 1970, I think, called Sugar Sugar, by the comic book version, ironically, of the Archies and Archie Comics. And it was, I think, the #1 single in the States at that time. And the singer of that song, Ron Dante, he wrote We're the Grimps for me. And this is intended on nothing but the intro theme song of every episode.
Okay. Well, I do remember that song. I'm old enough. And I think most of the listeners that we have are, shall we say, mature. So, yeah.
Well, then they'll all remember it.
I think that most of them will remember it. Okay. Well, let's have a listen. This is the theme song for the Grimps.
Winston, Mac, Emerson, and Mooney, clap your hands, everybody sing. Winston, Mac, Emerson, and Mooney, clap your hands, everybody shout. We're the Grimps, we're the band, playing where we can. We're the Grimps, we're the band,
Oh, nice. It does have a little echo of Sugar Sugar. Yeah, a little faster. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I could hear that in there.
Yeah, we actually, if you go to the website and you see the video of the kids playing it, we re-recorded it. It has a little bit harder and faster version than that one, but that was the one that I had available, so I wanted to send that. That was the original demo.
Okay, so the kids that I saw in the video, are they doing all the recordings for the songs that come up in the cartoon?
Yeah, they're going to be involved in just on the music end. They will not be the voices of the characters, but they will be going into the studio with the songs that we select, recording them, rehearsing them, and going out and performing them.
Oh, okay. Now, are you writing all the music for this?
No, I'm not. I'm not a songwriter. We're working with, and we will be working with several different songwriters. Kind of like a concept like how the Monkees was, where we're going to be taking the best songs that we can find from several different songwriters to create this one sound. So we have a bunch of different people, and we're hoping with the success and popularity, once it gets off the ground, we'll even have more access, to others. Right now, we just have a few different people that we're working with.
Now, are you doing the animation?
No, I designed any of the artwork that anybody might see, but I'm not an animator. Just like Matt Groening or Seth MacFarlane on The Simpsons or Family Guy, design the characters, work on writing the show, and then you work with the animators who really sit down and they bring it to life, and then they copy the art style, and they do their magic and they bring it to life.
Okay, well, funny you mentioned Seth and The Simpsons and the Family Guy. I'm actually going to be interviewing Dominic Fulcino in the first week of May. He was the animation director for both of those shows.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
And I've always been curious about the animation process because I remember seeing, speaking of Disney, I remember seeing a documentary that was made, in the 1940s something. And in those days, they had like a room full of 50 or 60 animators who were doing the Bugs Bunny cartoons, and they had to draw 28, 29 pictures for 1 second of film.
28 frames a second.
Right.
For every motion, the arm might move, the fingers might move. It was a grueling labor of love in those days, for sure.
So I'm assuming now that this can be done by computer, that somebody doesn't have to draw all that?
Yeah, they do it. They do it all different ways, but a lot of it is done on computer now. I mean, if you see the style and the variation of animation style on all different shows, they go from very, very simple ones to, the CG, the way DreamWorks is making movies now and things like that. It's done so many different ways. And some people are combining, a very, very fancy background, and then they'll go ahead and they will, put a simpler animation on top of it, so that way that they can, produce things quicker. The thing with television animation is it had to be a simple art form for them to knock out, 10 to 13 episodes in what they call the season, especially, prior to cable TV. And really the first ones that really did that was Hanna-Barbera with the Flintstones.
Right.
Both those guys were Disney animators who, when the early 60s, when TV came into every house in America, they had the idea of doing this, but they had to simplify the animation. They made the character had 4 fingers, not 5 fingers. You really cut back on things like that. And in some ways it was crude, but it was also the beginning of a whole new generation of animation. And that's why, Simpsons and Family Guy, compared to other animation, is very simple because they had to pump out episodes fast. And then you have South Park, which is even cruder animation, but it worked because the writing was, so cutting edge. It was a different audience. But so there's all different types. But But that's cool that you're having him on the show, as a guest. That's going to be a very interesting show.
Yeah, I'm anxious to talk to him because I got all kinds of questions. I'm one of these people that sometimes I like to just dissect a particular topic, and I think he's going to be perfect. I can ask him all those questions, and he'll know.
What's his name again?
Dominic Polcino, Polcino.
Another Italian.
Another Italian.
It's a shorter name.
Before we started recording, you were telling me a little bit about your background as a musician. Why don't you elaborate on that story a little bit? You played in New York. You were playing in bands. What? Yeah,
I'm in New York City.
Yeah.
Started playing drums. I'm probably 10, 12 years old. Played all the high school dances and all of that, and bopped around different bands. And then when I was in my 20s, went into producing, original music. I had a band that had original music, and we played in all the clubs in Manhattan. At that time, it was a little post-punk rock era, right after the Ramones and Blondie had broken out. And we went into the same circuit that they came out of. And there were clubs like, which most people know, CBGB's, Max's Kansas City, which was a thrill for me because Max's Kansas City was a club that was around since the 50s, and it was like where all the celebrity musicians and beatniks hung out. And in the 70s, early 70s, everybody before they were famous, or like Springsteen played there, and it was a place that John Lennon showed up and just popped on stage, and it's a club that only held maybe 250 people. But it was a very famous club, so we played there in that entire circuit. And at that same time in my life, I was going to the School of Visual Arts in the same neighborhood, 23rd Street and Lexington Avenue. It's a popular art college where I graduated with a BFA and studied advertising and cartooning primarily there, and writing. And I studied with Harvey Kurtzman, which if people are really into the graphic arts cartoon world, Harvey is the guy who was co-founder of Mad Magazine.
Oh, wow.
And went on to do Little Annie Fanny for Hugh Hefner in Playboy magazine in the 70s and the 80s. So that was like I was living those two lives at the same time, which, like I said later on, ironically, all those years later, I decided to put those two interests together to create the Grimps. And it was a fun time. I loved playing live music. I got to cross paths with a lot of people in the music business, some famous at the time, some unfamous but went on to be famous. Like we played a show with Madonna, we played with Cyndi Lauper, Bon Jovi, Stray Cats came out of there. It was an exciting time.
Do you have a website that you want to tell us about so people can check out the Grimps?
thegrimps.com. There people can go and learn a little bit more about the project, see some music videos of the live band, and also we're on Facebook at The Grimps, on Twitter at The Grimps, and on Instagram at The Grimps Mania. So people can check us out. I hope they do. Follow us, as we're working on announcing, when we got a deal and we'll be on the air.
Well, I hope it's sooner than later because it sounds like it's a really nice idea. And
thank you. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I've had a lot of people, parents and the grandparents' age, that are truly into, good music and good content for their kids, asking about it. So a lot of people feel that it has a 3 generations of entertainment, and our followers, which are encouraging, are coming from all around the world, and the age is spanning from 7 to 70. So those are good focus groups, I think. So, but I will let you know when we do it.
Great. All right. Well, Richard, we're going to wrap it. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Thank you for telling us about the Grimps and your life story. Best of luck. I hope to see it out there soon.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and we'll keep you up to date. I appreciate it.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
The Douglas Coleman Show is now offering a complete radio promotional package for music artists. Your track will air 28 times a week for 1 month over all of our online and terrestrial platforms, as well as permanently archive on Spreaker, iTunes and many other sites. Your profile will also be featured in our featured music artists page on our website. With this package, you will also get a 15-minute interview on our show to promote your latest single, EP, LP or upcoming gig. Similar packages like this can run hundreds of dollars and often are subscription-based. Our package has a one-time fee of just $49.99. Please go to douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP. That's douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP for complete details. Let's work together to get your music heard.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
And now...
Hey, Rocky! Watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat!
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! No doubt about it. I gotta get another hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Paul Marks. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Good. How are you, Douglas?
Doing just fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. You are an author, What's a Shamus Award?
The Shamus, Shamus is a slang word for a private eye, and the Shamus Award is given out by the Private Eye Writers of America for the best mystery novels, best mystery short stories. It's kind of like the Academy Awards of private eye fiction. So my novel White Heat won Shamus.
Oh, I see. Okay. So how many novels have you written now?
Well, I've written 3. The first one is White Heat, and it's the first one in the Duke Rogers Private Eye series. Then after that, I wrote a standalone novel called Vortex, which is about a vet coming home from Afghanistan who finds more trouble here than he found over there. And just recently, the sequel to White Heat came out, and it's called Broken Windows.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, before we talk about the book, why don't you just give us a little bit of your background so people kind of know who you are and what you've been up to, and then we'll talk about the book.
My background as a writer is I originally started off as a script doctor in Hollywood, and what I like to say about that is no credit, no glory. I don't know if most people realize that if you go to a movie and you see the written by credit, sometimes it's written by so-and-so and so-and-so, but usually there's several people with no screen credit behind them who have polished the script one way or another. And I keep saying, too, that my dad still can't figure out what I did for a living because, he never saw my name on the screen, so he couldn't figure out how that worked. But I did that, and then I moved into doing short stories, and from the short stories, I started doing novels.
Okay. You said you were a script doctor. What exactly does that mean? You take somebody's script and you fix it to the studio head's liking?
Well, something like that. Yeah, it could be, the studio head, or it could be a director, it could even be an actor, a producer. But, a script will come in from the original writer, and a lot of times the producers or directors or whoever want, certain kind of tweaks. They may want to play up certain elements. They may want to polish the dialogue a little bit so it's a little more punchy. They may want to add some humor. They may want to add some action. Sometimes you have to do more major rewrites where you literally, cut out half of it and, kind of redo it all from the beginning. So it really just depends on the project. But, it's polishing, fine-tuning, that kind of thing.
So now you've got a book out called Broken Windows. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, Broken Windows is the sequel to White Heat. And in White Heat, the character Duke Rogers and his very unpolitically correct partner, Jack, solve a crime of an actress. But part of the problem there is that Duke was inadvertently the cause of her death. So he's feeling guilty at the beginning of Broken Windows. And there's the book is set in 1994. And in 1994, California, there was a proposition called Proposition 187, which was an anti-illegal alien proposition, and caused a lot of controversy. So this is all swirling in the background as Duke starts to help a neighbor's housekeeper, an undocumented worker, whose brother has been murdered. So he wants to find out who killed her brother, a day laborer. He's helped again by Jack, his very un-PC partner. The book opens with a woman jumping from the Hollywood sign, so I think that's kind of a good teaser. And the other kind of plot thread going through it is there's a lawyer living in Venice, California, who's been disbarred and places an ad in the newspaper saying, "We'll do anything for money." So we have these 3 threads that Duke has to figure out how the hell they all come together. This woman who jumped from the Hollywood sign, this disbarred lawyer who's desperate, and the murder of the day laborer, brother of his maid, down the street maid. And it's a mystery thriller and hopefully very entertaining, but it also weaves in and out of this Proposition 187 debate. So it's, I think it's a good thriller.
This was a real proposition in California?
Yes, it was. And very controversial. It's kind of a mirror image of what's going on in the news today. I kind of look at it as a prism to see how things were then, and they were kind of a precursor to what's going on today with all of the immigration debates and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of gives us a way to look at what's happening today, but removed through the past.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that proposition. What was it about, and what eventually happened with it?
Well, the proposition won by a fairly big margin, but the court shot it down. But if it had been allowed to stay in place, it would have limited the schooling that illegal aliens could get. It would have limited the health care they got. It put a lot of limits on what kind of services that people who were not here legally could get. And as I say, it was very controversial at the time, but it did win and was shot down in the courts, so it was never really implemented. But it is kind of a precursor to all the turmoil and things that are going on today, just like we see protests and a lot of loud vitriol and things from both sides today. All of that was going on when this was set back in 1994, Los Angeles and California. One of the things that I do in the book is I have these two characters, Duke, the main character, private investigator, and then his partner, Jack. And as I said, Jack is very unpolitically correct. So it allows me to have them argue those issues back and forth. We can see both sides of it because they're both kind of coming from they're friends, but I kind of look at it like, if you remember the old cartoons, where you'd have the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other.
Right.
And that's kind of what's going on here. But my ultimate goal is, the book is not a political diatribe and not preachy. It's just set in that milieu, and it does deal a little bit with that, with the smuggling of people over the border and that kind of thing. But mostly I just want it to be a good, solid, entertaining roller coaster ride of a mystery thriller. That's my first goal.
The novels that you've written, were they written with the idea that a film would be made, or could be made, or want to be made?
Well, I guess in the back of my mind, that's always there. As I say, that's my background, and in fact, I write my first drafts as a screenplay. Some people outline. I don't really outline, but I do write the first draft as a screenplay, so in a sense, that's my outline draft. But it's a lot looser than, a formal outline. So, it's always in the back of my mind, I'd love to have, the books made into movies, and I think they would make really good movies.
These days with the technology that is available, musicians can pretty much be DIY and record their music and distribute it on the internet. Similarly with authors, you can self-publish with the software that Amazon has. How does this work for screenwriters? Where is the outlet for somebody who writes a screenplay to get it out there for potential people to look at it who would be in the position to turn it into a film, who had the financing? How do they get their screenplays seen?
Well, it's kind of like what you were saying about authors. You can go the self-publishing route, or you could go the traditional publishing route with a traditional publisher that does certain things for you, or you can go through Amazon and do that. And it's similar with screenplays. You can go the traditional route where you try to get an agent that represents screenplays, or try to get it to somebody who produces films, that kind of thing. It's not easy to do, but it can be done. But also with the technology available today, you could, if you wanted to, probably shoot it on your own, as a low-budget kind of movie, depending on, the elements that are in it. I mean, obviously, if you have a cast of thousands and it's set in Antarctica, it's going to be a lot harder to do that on a low budget than if you have a smaller cast and, a limited number of locations. But there is technology available that you could do it today. The problem is that, okay, say you do that, where are you going to get it seen? And you might be able to sell it to one of the cable television channels. You might be able to sell it to something like Netflix, but the likelihood is not great. And, you can take it to film festivals and hope that it gets noticed there and that somebody will pick it up. You do hear about these kind of stories, but I think, most independent, low budget films probably have a hard time getting noticed.
Well, so it is kind of a two-part puzzle. You have to get the film made, and then you have to get distribution for it. If you're lucky enough, that's one place where the major studios have an advantage over the indies because they've already got the distribution in place. So if you're lucky enough to get major studio backing for your film, you don't really have to worry about the distribution, right?
No, you don't. But, there's also a lot of independent production companies that you can try going to as well. A lot of actors have their own production companies. A lot of producers have their own production companies. The studios or the major, studios, production companies do their own production, but they also pick up things that other people have made. It can get complicated, but as I say, it's something that's doable. The problem is, if you do something very low budget, you have to do it really well in order to stand out from the crowd and have somebody want to take an interest in it.
There's one thing on your bio I wanted to ask you about. It says, Paul has the dubious distinction of being the last person to have shot a film on the fabled MGM backlot before it hit the dust to make way for condos. Well, tell us about that.
I didn't actually call myself the last person to do that. A guy named Stephen Bingen, who wrote a book with a couple of other guys called MGM, Hollywood's Greatest Backlot, said that of me a long time ago. I did a low-budget independent film, and I needed a place to shoot it. And MGM used to be the king of all the Hollywood studios. They had 5, I believe, separate backlots in Culver City, California, which is part of Los Angeles. It's a separate city, but it's within kind of the LA area. And, one by one, each of the backlots were torn down to make way for condos or other kind of housing. And there was one backlot standing, and I was able to shoot there, which was very exciting because a lot of famous movies had been shot on this backlot, a lot of famous MGM movies. And, so on the one hand, it's very kind of cool to be able to say I am the last person to have shot at the fabled MGM backlot, but on the other hand, it's kind of depressing. I mean, to me, coming from where I'm coming from, I'd much rather see the standing sets and backlots than the condos that are sitting there now. And the main MGM lot where the sound stages and that kind of thing are was across the street from the backlot where the outdoor sets are. That's still standing, but it's no longer MGM. Now it's Sony.
Okay, well, what was the film that you shot?
It was a little musical about a guy who he kind of goes back in time. I don't know if you know who Busby Berkeley is, but he was a director of musicals back in the 40s and 30s. And he goes back and he meets Busby Berkeley, and he gets to direct a musical, and it's basically the exact opposite of the kind of things that I write as a book or short story author. It's a very fun, light musical, whereas the things that I write in my books are kind of more on the dark side, hard-boiled, thrillers and mysteries and that kind of thing. So it's I guess the two sides of my personality.
All right. Are you a Gemini?
No.
Okay. Because I'm a Gemini, and a lot of Geminis that I've met have that decidedly dual personality. You know, they have two different personas depending on what day you catch them. Well, I think we've got everything. I think we covered everything. The book is called Broken Windows, and it's out now. It's available, yeah?
Yeah, oh yeah. They can get it at Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. The publisher is a kind of boutique publisher called Down and Out Books. They can get it on their site. They do a lot of mysteries and thrillers. And I'd like to give out my website if I could.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which is www.pauldmarks.com. And I'd love to hear from people.
Okay, super. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Best of luck with the book. How's it doing?
It's doing pretty good. It's getting really good reviews, and sales are pretty good, and, I'm pretty happy with it, actually.
Well, great. That's good to hear. All right, Paul. Thank you for coming on the show. Take care.
Well, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Richard Sirgiovanni and Paul D. Marks. Thank you very much. Also, thank you to Kathy Varna and Yajur Music for their music. This is Douglas Coleman saying I'll see ya when I see ya.
It's a